All right, Tech Sergeant Harwell, do we have all our guest speakers here? All right, well, good afternoon, AFRS. I'm Sergeant Keating, for those who haven't met me. Before I hand over the presentation to Tech Sergeant Harwell, I just want to make a quick announcement. We've actually made some changes to our bylaws this year. For those who have not heard, we made 2 amendments. The first being that we're going to allow senior airmen an opportunity to work and lead events within the 5-6. This means they can host presentations and all sorts of stuff. We just want to help, give and inspire an opportunity for them to actually have more chances within a geographically separated unit. With that, if they're joining as a senior airman, we actually decided that they should be able to join free of charge. And since we were looking into the cost of memberships of the 5-6, the second big change we decided to make this year was that instead of having to renew our members every year, it's actually going to be a lifetime due for the duration of your time within the AFRS family. So you pay once, you're always going to be a member of 5-6, and we're just going to make it that way moving forward unless the next council decides to undo my regime. So with that, those 2 big announcements, keep that in mind. And I challenge you to reach out to your squadrons, reach out to your senior airmen, send them my way. Let me know. I'll help hook them up. I'll get them on our email list. And then they can be leading these presentations with the assistance of our 5-6 members and our board of directors. Without further ado, Tech Sergeant Harwell, over to you.
All righty. Good afternoon, Air Force Recruiting Service team. Thanks for joining us today. I am Sergeant Harwell, and I'm going to be your host for this event today. I know I'm personally excited to gain some really valuable insight from this amazing panel of flight chiefs gathered here. So thank you to all our flight chiefs for saying yes and joining us here. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick rundown of our event. You saw that we were recording, which is great for anybody that can't be here. You can catch it on the 5-6 YouTube channel afterwards. And we are going to start off. Actually, I need to screen share here. Sergeant Keating, you still here?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you mind screen sharing? I don't think it's letting me because.
Well, I actually have to allow you that opportunity. So if I don't enable that, then that's my fault.
It's all good. All right, so let me see if that'll work now. A nice little follow along here. All right. So hopefully everybody can see that. Does everybody see a PowerPoint up there now?
Yep.
All right. So we're going to start off this event with our flight chiefs giving an introduction of themselves, a little bit about their recruiting time, and then we'll roll into the questions and answers. So I guess without further ado, Master Sergeant Terry Smith.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Master Sergeant Terry Smith. I was a EA recruiter out with the 311th Recruiting Squadron out of Wheeling, West Virginia. From there, I had the opportunity to help stand up the 330th and actually stayed in the 330th since the time we stood up and became the flight chief out in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Until just recently, I got up to the group up here as a 372nd group trainer up here.
All right. And we also have Master Sergeant Megan Roberts.
Good afternoon, Master Sergeant Megan Roberts. I had the opportunity to start out in San Antonio for my EA stint, and then I took a short trip across the 1604 loop and went up to headquarters and got to work in Job Bank, and I did the prior service program as well. I'm now back in my home area. I run 2 flights right now, filling in for our G and H flight team here out of 338.
Thank you, ma'am. Master Sergeant Ryan McFall.
Hey guys, good to see everybody here on the line. I also started in the 311th Recruiting Squadron in Mentor, Ohio. It's about 40 minutes from my hometown. Transitioned to line officer recruiting within that assignment, and then took an official officer accessions position as my second location in Federal Way, Washington. And from there, moved on to Wichita, Kansas, where I am currently the flight chief in D Flight for the 369th Group and 349th Recruiting Squadron.
Thank you. And last, but certainly not least, Master Sergeant Alexander Ream.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Sergeant Ream, rounding out the panel for your Tier 1 to Tier 3. I recruited in Montgomery, Alabama, and now I'm the flight chief out in San Bernardino, California in 362.
Thank you for those introductions. So really excited about the wide range of talent we have here to answer some of these questions. So we're going to get into some of the questions and answers that we gathered from the field, kind of roll through those. And then if you have any questions, try to hold those for the end, or you can put them in the chat box. We'll give an opportunity for like follow-up and any additional questions at the end. So moving into this, this was one of the first questions that we received. It was submitted anonymously. I'm on my second tier assignment in marketing. As a tech sergeant, I may be able to become a recruiting flight chief, or I can RTF and will definitely become a flight chief. The issue is if I stay in recruiting, I lose my career field. If I return, I feel like I will have a better chance of making Master Sergeant. What are your thoughts? There are other considerations in this decision, but for now, I would like to focus on the promotion aspect. We've got Sergeant Ream.
Yeah, so this was actually one of the big things for me, making Master Sergeant in Tier 1. So not the same exact. You're going from tech to master. For me, it was master to senior. And I think one of the big things for me, and part of this, there was a lot of other decision factors inside of this. For anybody that's worried about, am I going to make the next rank? Am I going to get to the next position? All of those things. Big thing for me and how I focused on this was the core values and faith in the system and a lot of different things like that. If for me, if I'm going to make senior, it's going to happen regardless if I stay in this career field or if I RTF. And when I was talking to Sergeant Harwell about this, whoever this is, I'll put my number in the chat. And if you want to reach out, I've got a whole lot more on this. But I think your other considerations in the decision are what you need to focus on and find out what's important to you. I know you're asking about the promotion aspect. I think that just goes back, like I said in the beginning, the core values and faith in the system. If you're going to make it in your primary AFSC, then you're for sure going to make it in recruiting as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said there. One thing I would say with that is when it comes to promotion, there's a lot of things you got to think about. And I think we often have the misconception that if we go back to our career field, we're immediately going to make Master Sergeant. And in some cases that you're coming back, you've been out of that career field, and you're kind of recruiting. If you're staying in recruiting, if you've built a good reputation to start with, that's going to carry you through a long ways. And if being a flight chief is really what you want to do, I think that's a conversation you need to start having with your leadership now to let them know, and you need to start developing yourself for that position. If you look at the last cycle that we had, there were a lot of tech sergeants that got an opportunity to go be a flight chief. And if I had to guess, most of those tech sergeants, if they do well in that position, are probably looking at a Master Sergeant stripe. So like Sergeant Ream said, I think you need to focus on the other aspects, and you really need to figure out which mission it is that you want to be a part of. If you really want to go back and be a part of your previous career field mission, then there's nothing wrong with that. People definitely need to go back and do that. But I think your chances of making Master Sergeant in Air Force Recruiting Service are good as long as you're putting yourself on the right path to do that.
Really great stuff there. Thanks. So moving on. What are some mistakes you've made as a flight chief? How did you adjust? And what were the lessons you took from it/them?
So a big takeaway that I had on this was being a new flight chief, you get bombarded with a lot of questions from the recruiters. And I had a new team, like I had most of my team was transitioned over and they were within their 6 months. So if it was quick minute decisions I could make, I would make them. But if it was something that had to be thought on, I was trying to make the decision right there on the spot. And I've came to learn that it's okay to take time and it's okay to say, hey, I'm going to come back to you after I've done my research and after I've sat on it for a little while. So I'm not making those knee-jerk decisions and then thinking about maybe that wasn't the right decision I should have made on it. So taking that time and letting your team know, hey, I'm going to take that time for myself, and then I'm going to give you the reasons why I made the decision that I did to proceed with whatever question or problem that was presented to me.
Can I go back?
Yep, go ahead, Sergeant Ream, over to
Sorry
you.
about that. My biggest thing, a lot of the same. 10 recruiters, 5 in rookie status, wanting to be everywhere at the same time as well. Trying to do everything, trying to still do tier 1 things, especially going tier 1 to tier 3. And ultimately it was time management and figuring out how all of that looked. But I mean, spot on what Sergeant Roberts said.
Alrighty. What is something you do that makes you successful that you were surprised to find out actually worked? Sergeant McFall, over to you.
Yes, ma'am. So I have a couple of things for this, and I think that the overall theme is that we have a great sales model with Impact, but use outside resources to kind of supplement that. I had a buddy bring up an idea of, and we called it getting to know, the word know. And when we would talk to applicants, we would walk up and do zone canvassing, and I would demonstrate this with my recruiters, and we'd say, hey, we're doing a survey and we just want to ask you a question. Why would you say no to the Air Force? And what that does in our in our own psyche is it allows that applicant to say no, and that's a good answer. And what it helps us do is it helps us research those areas. When we ask enough people, it helps us research those areas and what we need to target in that area. If everybody would say no to the Air Force because they're afraid of heights, we could run ads out in that area that says, hey, are you afraid of heights? Because 95% of the Air Force doesn't deal with, jobs that include you being at a high altitude. And it just helps us communicate with our AORs a little bit better and the people that are in there. And sometimes we've ran into in our flight about 40% of the time, people say, well, I wouldn't say no to the Air Force. And then they tell you why they say yes. So it makes it, their guard is down. It really helps us connect more with our people. Another addition to that is using outside resources in the name of negotiation skills training. I have a guy that I swear by, who if anybody that knows me, I've talked about it probably a million times. He wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. There's a master class on it, but it's a guy that did hostage negotiations, and I kind of jokingly say that we negotiate with in that sort of environment right now anyway, and gives a lot of good insights onto how to communicate with individuals, how to mirror their behavior and their actions so that your applicants understand that they're fully heard. And the best part about it as a flight chief is all of those skills work with your recruiters as well. Because at the end of the day, everybody in this room probably wants to be heard when they have a problem or they have a concern. And this just gives more of a training on how to do those sorts of things. If you guys want links to the videos, I do have I just need basically your email address, and I can add you to where all of those training videos are available. I've put them up on a Google Drive, and you can download them and use them for whatever purposes you'd like. So those are my couple of things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of really great information there. I was taking some notes, so a lot of good stuff. Alrighty. Do you do something that's not taught in traditional training that works for you / your RICS / your zone? Sergeant Smith.
All right, perfect. So I think there's a lot of things you can do that aren't traditionally taught in training. And one thing that I personally did and that I encouraged all of my recruiters to do as a flight chief was find some community. So for me in particular, incorporated with those groups and become known in those groups was it wasn't just work for me, it was fun. Weekends I was running races. People came to know me as the Air Force guy that was out there running with a stroller. Same thing when I went to be a flight chief. I got involved in a ton of ice fishing tournaments, and we went and we recruited at ice fishing tournaments. And not only did we generate a ton of leads doing that, but we actually put people in the Air Force from it. When people see you out having fun and just genuinely enjoying what you're doing, it's a sale in itself. And I would highly encourage anyone going to be a flight chief to talk to their recruiters about that, help them find ways that they can incorporate their passion into their recruiting activities. Over.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Sergeant Smith. You have to find that fun time that you're having, while you're at work. Some tools for your recruiters that we've utilized. Again, talk about impact and that being a great kind of skeleton product to start off with, but to add to it, my recruiters, I have them do find out what the applicant's absolute highest goal is, and then I have them do a comparison of how they're going to achieve that goal without the Air Force first, and then I have them do a how are they going to achieve that same goal through the Air Force. And what we found is about 95% of the time that we outweigh it, the civilian route. And my recruiters will look at the applicant, and the applicant will say in their own words, "This is the best option for me." And that's really what we want to hear. We don't want the recruiter to say, "Hey, this is the best option for you." We want the applicant to really believe it. And utilizing that method. The other thing is Sergeant Ream and I were talking about this yesterday, and I don't know if he wants to talk about it for a sec, but he tried it out. I was telling him, I said, every time I go out with my recruiters, we always go to lunch, right? Like that's just kind of a standard thing. It's recruiters are being evaluated all the time, and it's good to kind of like take off for a second and have lunch. But while we're at lunch, I've demonstrated this. My recruiters use it, and when the server comes over, I look at the server and say, "Hey, there's a guy here, a girl here, whatever you want to say. There's a guy here. I think his name was Jake, or I can't remember his name, but he said he worked here. I don't know what shift he's on, but he was looking to join the Air Force. Do you know where that? Do you know who I'm talking about?" And I've never not had somebody like our server go into the rest of the kitchen and try to find out who that individual is. We had one time over here at a ramen shop where the server actually brought every single employee one by one to the table. It was like, "Is it this guy?" I'm like, "I don't know. That guy, he was a little shorter than that." And you just kind of play around. And what it does is it's kind of a fun way for people that have a hard time starting conversations to start one. And what it also does is it creates a conversation about the Air Force when you leave. Like, what did you say to the Air Force guy? And and then they start going back and forth. And I think that having those kinds of interactions help out a lot. You can't do it at the same restaurant over and over and over again, right? But it does work in our area, and it does spark that interest. And then all of a sudden, we have somebody sitting in there for an appointment, and looking into Air Force options.
Love that. All right, so moving on then, how have you motivated some recruiters that needed a little extra motivation to make goal? Sergeant Roberts.
First of all, it's all about knowing your team and knowing what's really going to motivate them. So is it their time? Are they looking for awards? Is it their family? Is it going to the gym? Like, you have to figure out what drives them and what's going to motivate them individually, because they're not cookie cutter. That's for sure. Spending time with them, just like there was mentioned, taking them out to lunch, just showing up, not during for an office visit or whatever, just showing up to spend time with them and doing the job with them, showing them that you can do it as well. Getting out there, there's classroom presentations and showing them how to do it, shows that you can get your hands dirty as well with them. And then I've created a little incentive program within my flight. I've got the silliest awards, from like EWE belts, like a Hulk Smash award for different things that travels around our flight, and I pull up per quarter and we celebrate the small wins to help motivate one another. And then they pass it around. They're like, man, I got the WWE belt this time, or I got Hulk Smash, and they've got a turnover chain too. So just those little things has helped them internally motivate them all, because it gets the whole team buy-in.
I couldn't agree more with all of that. I think exactly what you said is you have to know the difference between each of your recruiters, because what motivates one is not going to motivate the next one. And if you don't dig down deep enough to find out what those motivators are, you're not going to be able to motivate them. Some people just want to go home and be with their family, right? They're there, they want to work their hours and go home. So being able to tap into that and sit down, let's just use planning as an example, right? Maybe they're struggling with their planning, and you haven't been able to figure out how to show them the value in it. But when you can sit down with a plan and say, hey, look, I understand you want to get home, you want to be done after these hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to build a plan with you that's going to do exactly that for you. If you get these things done in the day, then you're good to go home and be with your family. But that's what we need from you, and we need you to be efficient while you're in the office to make sure you can do that. So again, that's just figuring out what they really want, what drives them, and being able to tap into that consistency and your drive to work as build a lot of credibility and drive your recruiters to try to work as hard or harder than you. Most people, I don't think, want to think that they're not working as hard as their boss. So if you're putting in the work, you're putting in the hours, they can clearly see that. I really think that goes a long ways as far as motivating recruiters.
Awesome. All right, so this was a two-part question that was submitted anonymously. How do you or your unit approach finding and offering opportunities for professional development? What advice would you give to someone trying to incorporate professional development with consideration given to the constraints of geographical separation and or an increased mission tempo?
Perfect. So I think when you talk about the increased mission tempo and all that, I think you can tie in your professional development with mission success. So for example, something we did in our flight is we picked a sales book, and I picked a team lead on it that would facilitate a discussion every couple weeks on that book. They would read a section of it, they would digest it, and they would come prepared to actually talk to the group about it and provide feedback on what was valuable, what wasn't, what related best. I think another thing that we miss a lot on right now is our professional writing when we're talking about professional development. So I think as a flight chief, you need to make sure you develop that skill and you work on that skill with your recruiters. and just being, we're going to work on this together and we're actually going to develop on and doing it yourself. I think that goes a long ways to develop those skills.
Oh, were you good to go, Sergeant Smith? All right, sweet. So I'd like to address the geographical separation first. And what I mean by that is some of your recruiters may be in an area that may be more dense. And then you have recruiters that are kind of like out in rural zones. I think that it starts with accurate expectations based on how much windshield time somebody might have while they're doing their job, and making sure that goaling is adjusted appropriately. So you're not necessarily putting the same exact standard as someone that's in a rural zone and someone that's in a more dense area that they may have more propensity. So I would say that's the first thing to do. And then as far as professional development opportunities, really get in the Brown Book, right? Check and see what those those development opportunities are. And as an example, I have 2 Master Sergeant EA recruiters. One is going off to be a flight chief, and the other one will next year. And those individuals are involved in all EFDPs, for the squadron. We even invite our SW recruiter out of here, which is he's also a Master Sergeant. And when it comes to EPR time, I've built sort of a structure that 2 of my other recruiters are assigned to that Master Sergeant. They run through, just like a supervisor, they run everything through that individual first before it kind of, before it comes up to me. And so I think it's all about how you are going to build the structure of your flight.
All right, so this is kind of a long one, so bear with me here. And this question comes from Tech Sergeant Milner, who's a SW RIC and interim flight chief. What action needs to be taken, or do you recommend, when it is clear a recruiter is doing what they're supposed to, has solid sales skills, etc., but is missing goal? As AFRS struggles across the board, we have a wealth of professionals who are missing mission despite using the resources they have available, even going above and beyond what is expected of them, and still coming up short. They are asking why and what do I do? With the lines of effort being exhausted, all the shadow training provided across the US, all the tools and levers we have used before to help someone bring themselves out of a hole do not seem to be moving the needle enough to affect our desired end state. I guess my question is, what do you tell a high-performing team or individual that is already firing on all cylinders, but is still missing goal? How do you coach and guide them in a way that doesn't include levying even more expectations on them? When your team is jobbing out, but rent is coming due and you're short on cash, what do you tell that team?
I think this is something, especially, I know I'm facing this right now. As our team, we missed goal last quarter. It was not a fun place to be in. It's not a fun place to be in. The biggest thing that I've been telling people is continue to do what you're doing. If you are, and again, assuming 100% of that is true, and you're hitting all 7 mission critical tasks, you're out and about in your zone, you are jobbing it. Again, going back to, and I use the core values a lot in this, but you have to have faith in yourself as well. Another thing too is, like Sergeant McFall said, I talked to him yesterday. We went to flight chief school together over the last, actually since this panel, when we were both on it, we started talking a lot more and figuring out what works in Kansas, and then finding out, holy cow, it actually does work in California too. You just have to try things that you've not tried in the past. On the flight chief perspective, get out there, show them what they got to do. Don't be afraid to fail. Continue to fail forward, I think is the expression, but it's one of those things that you need to do that internal look at your plan, look at everything else, make sure that as a flight chief, you're reviewing everyone's flow and trend, and use the tools that you've been given. I mean, I think we've got a group trainer on here now. that'll be somebody that I'm sure I'll be reaching out to after this and different things like that. So just keep getting after it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting after it. Yeah, I can't say that enough. That's all I got.
So thank you, Sergeant Milner, one of my previous troops. He's a stud of a recruiter. Thanks for the difficult question. Always love these ones. So I think with this, you've really got to be careful how you articulate the message. As a flight chief, I don't think you would ever hear out of my mouth that it's okay to miss goal. When you articulate it in that manner, you're giving an automatic outlet for recruiters to throw their hands in the air and say, well, I've done everything I can. I think most people on here would agree that there's always something we as flight chiefs or as a recruiter that we can do a little bit better. And as a flight chief, I think it is vitally important that we actually dig down deep enough. We're spending enough time with that recruiter to figure out what that is that they can do just a little bit better to help them get there. And that may not get them across the line for the quarter that you're in, but the goal in the end is to improve their skill set, improve your own skill set so that it's not a continual process, right? Every once in a while, someone's going to miss goal, and I don't think there's a lot you can do to stop that every time. But what we want to do is figure out what we can do to continually improve and create that culture in your flight of we all need to continually get better and find things we can look at to hone and refine so that we don't end up in that same boat the next quarter. Over.
Thank you. All right. Next question here, submitted anonymously from a current EA recruiter. Any advice for struggling recruiters to deal with the constant stress, pressure of making goal? And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a theme here with that, but Sergeant Roberts.
I think the biggest, and I know we hear it a lot, is you got to take time for yourself. So whatever sparks joy in your life, you need to make sure that you take that time to be able to experience that joy, because the job and the mission's not going to go away. But you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So whether that's you're a gym rat and you want to go to the gym, you need to cut that time out for your day, or if it's spending time with your family, like your family understands like this is your job, but when you're with them, 100% of your time should be with them. Put the phone down and spend time with them and get out of your computer. If you need help, always ask for help. You have a slew of teammates that I guarantee that they would drop everything for you to help you, because I'm sure they're going through something very similar. I feel like that stress as well. And then going through asking for help, like reach out to those other recruiters in different zones that are successful, see what they're doing differently, and encourage that for them to talk to them to see if there's something they can do differently in their zone that's being worked somewhere else.
Pretty much the same answer as Sergeant Roberts, and I think bringing in Sergeant Smith's answer from the last question. So this is kind of a cop-out by copying off of two people, but I think everything that both of them just said, evaluate the things that and truly evaluate what you can be better at, break that down, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah, it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I mean, without repeating everything they just said, that's what my answer would be.
Appreciate you on that one. All right. Also another long one. I will say too, real quick, this question was originally about a specific policy. I took out some of the specifics in it. Our panel, I don't want to say that they didn't feel comfortable, but it's, a policy that they weren't familiar with enough to give a better answer for. So I still wanted to make sure that this person got their question answered. But like I said, just took out some of the specifics of the policy. As a flight chief, how would you motivate recruiters to stay positive in a rough year with a new squadron policy that you don't agree with? Through this policy, we were given little to no guidance as to the reason. Recruiters are already having a hard time getting people to join, and this policy is making it more difficult. First, how do we support something like this? Secondly, how do you tell recruiters this is a good thing, knowing we will likely lose potential people with this kind of policy? And lastly, how do we boost morale, keep the PIR statuses engaged while also navigating Genesis and gathering necessary medical paperwork for process preparation that could take upwards of 70 days.
Perfect. All right. So with anything like this, I'd say as a flight chief, you really need to sit back and consider what your role is as a flight chief. When you're talking about keeping recruiters positive through a policy that you don't necessarily agree with, and you're not given enough guidance on it, I think the first thing that you need to do as a flight chief is go to your production superintendent and get the clarification on that policy and where it came from so that you better understand how to articulate that message. With something like this, if you come into it with a poor attitude and you show your recruiters that you don't agree with it, and you create this me versus them mentality, you're only shooting yourself and your squadron and your flight in the foot, right? It's a policy to definitely voice your concerns up. And I would say you get a couple times, maybe re-engage, voice it again. And if you get a no again, that policy is your policy. And as a flight chief, it is your job to support that. You take some time, you think about it, you ingest it, you write down your flight, and you move forward with it with a smile on your face. If you do that, your motivation and your energy towards the policy is going to directly impact how your recruiters view that policy to create a problem. And that's not a problem that you're going to want to have to come to basically dig out of a hole that you created yourself. When you say you'll likely lose people, I would say you need to think about the policy and the purpose. And you also need to determine what you can do or what you can put in place as a flight chief to ensure you don't lose those people. I found that when you articulate the message as well to an applicant as you did to a recruiter, that often you won't lose those people. They understand the process. And as long as they understand that process, you can keep them in line and move them along as the policy goes as well. And to the last part of that question, when it comes to morale through all that stuff, that is your energy level. Like I said before, you need to approach this stuff with a high energy level, high excitement, and a smile on your face. As a flight chief, if you're coming in and you're upset, your recruiters will be too. You're going to
You kind of cut out there for a minute. I think you're good, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you hit on a lot of the topics that I would go over, but one thing that I would, as new flight chiefs and as recruiters, empowering folks to understand that they can influence change regardless of what their position is. So long as the information they're providing, we're talking about losing potential people with this kind of policy. If you can articulate how many people that you're going to lose, and that number seems to be significant for your flight, I think that your production superintendent would say, "Hey, okay, we've got this policy, but why don't you, because you have this data, why don't you call me?" And we'll talk about what maybe some exceptions to this policy are going to be. Very much so, like finding the why behind everything. People will get behind, something that has a good why belief, and that's understanding the intent of what a policy is going to be, and then finding a silver lining. Maybe we look at a policy of we're going to lose people, and I don't know, maybe somebody's view of those individuals is that, like, these are not good people for the Air Force, and we have to trust that we're finding the right individuals for the right jobs, and that they are going to fit the mold of being a good airman. And so, understanding that intention of, from the production superintendent, and being comfortable, regardless of what setting you're in, of asking your production superintendent, hey, I need to understand more about this. We talked, Sergeant Roberts mentioned knowing your people. That goes up and down the chain, right? So you may have a production superintendent that's really like straight and to the point, and like, this is how it is. And then if you explain to them, hey, the way I take information is that I have to understand the why behind it. Most likely your production superintendent, being a supervisor and a leader in the Air Force, is going to sit down and say, oh, well, they just need some more attention understanding this. As far as keeping morale up, that's your energy. So Sergeant Smith said it, but you have to find the silver lining. The silver lining that I see in an applicant's process, I know it sucks, okay? Don't get me wrong, but an applicant's process taking 70 days to get up to MEPS is, you may not have that individual this quarter, but it gives you an outlook for all the quarters that you have ahead of you, that we need to work people right now to make sure, like, for example, we're in the second quarter. If it takes 70 days, we need to work people right now as fast as we can, because we know that they're going to be able to get jobs in the third quarter. So having a more futuristic and forward approach on how to look at that, might help with that morale, and explaining to recruiters, hey, we've got to get somebody in the office today so that you can make goal in the third quarter.
Thanks, Sergeant Smith and Sergeant McFall, for taking on that tough question. Really good responses there. What are some pros and cons to moving from a tier 1 directly to a tier 3A, essentially skipping over tier 2? Good, Sergeant Ream.
Being the 1 to 3 on the panel, I think one of the biggest things that you still have when you go 1 to 3 is that connectedness immediately to what a tier 1 is going through, and what is happening. Fortunately, I was able to be detailed to a tier 2 position. I think that year that I was detailed, and that amount of time between detailed tier 2 and detailed flight chief, really opened my eyes to what every flight chief does. I think when I went through, and this is something that actually I think Chief Cohn's on the line, and this is something that Chief Storman, who's up in 38 right now, was a pro soup or a senior trainer at the time. It really takes that guidance and mentorship, because there's a huge difference in supervising people in a shop where you can see them every day, and there's a big difference between 25,000 square mile zone that you have to get out and get after 10 different people, and then understanding all of their personality types, different things like that. So I would say one of the cons is you miss out on that MEPS experience. You miss out on some of that operations experience, job bank, SW recruiting, OA recruiting. But the pro to this was still coming in, still understanding what's going on, being 100% in it when it came down to all of the changes that are happening and have happened over the last 3 years that you may miss out in some of those tier 2 experiences. But ultimately, the biggest thing is if you're ready and your production superintendent, your chief, your leadership are ready to sign that MOI to move you on, they have faith in you that you'll be able to do this job. So I hope that answers that question. Me not doing tier 2, I can't really give you any of those cons, but I think Sergeant Roberts is going to follow and say why that tier 2 is important.
You already touched on it, Sergeant Ream. You get that greater scope of what it is as the enterprise of AFRS is, what each entity handles. So you just get a little bit more peek behind the curtain and how operations and whatnot work. So the knowledge that I gained from being up at AFRS and doing job bank and prior services immensely helped me being a flight chief, because I could speak on a lot more about AFRS as an enterprise than what I would have if I was just going from that tier 1 to tier 3, because I didn't have that peek behind the curtain.
Definitely some really great points there. Alrighty. I think these next round of like 3 questions are questions we'd like to see answers from all of our panel here. What have you found to be the most difficult or stressful aspect of being a recruiting flight chief?
All right. So there's a lot of challenges with being a flight chief, but I'll tell you one of the things I struggled with. I like to solve problems, right? When I see a problem, I like to find a fix, and I like to put a stamp on it. It's good to go, or a fix on it. You have to create buy-in within your flight and get them to solve the problems as well. So understand, be exactly the way you would have fixed the problem, and being okay with that. That was a learning curve for me. When I just want to fix something, you can't just do that. You've got to get the buy-in first.
For me, this was my first time leading a team, was being a flight chief. I came in as a new staff sergeant, and going through tier 1, tier 2, I didn't lead a team. So figuring out what type of leader that I was going to be. And then the second aspect of it was just writing packages, and writing EPRs was a challenge for me. I was a little intimidated by it whenever I became a flight chief. And I've just taken that time to this last year and some change just to hone my skills. And I would hope that I've gotten better over time. I would say that I have, but just taking that time to better improve yourself, I think is key.
Yeah, I'd say that I had a tough time with 2 things. First, most of us in the flight chief roles, we were successful recruiters, and folks that are going into those roles are also typically successful recruiters. And so, not being a recruiter was a little bit difficult, and also being okay with vulnerability. So a lot of folks struggle with that, but I think being vulnerable, it can hurt your pride if you go out and you demonstrate something and it doesn't work out. You got to be able to look at your recruiter and be like, "Oof, this is how I could do things better." So swallowing your pride a little bit was something that's difficult. I think I went out of order, but sorry, Sergeant Reed. Go ahead.
It's all right. Once again, echoing. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's letting go of what the tier 1 job is and actually stepping into that tier 3. Like Sergeant McFall said, is being a successful recruiter makes it difficult when you're watching somebody and you're just like, let me do it. Just let me do it. Get out of my way, and not making them get out of the way, but leading them and actually teaching them how to do what they need to be able to do.
Great stuff there. What is an important quality to have to be a successful flight chief?
Well, I really appreciate Sergeant Harwell that you put me first on the, so I don't have to echo everyone, because there's a lot of good responses coming up here, and I would say here that were important to me. My recruiters to know that I am doing I'm holding a schedule, and I'm being consistent with that schedule so that they can plan around it and develop basically what my priorities are and work on those, and actually be able to plan without me completely wrecking their plan every week. And the second thing I would say is promise keeping, right? If you say you're going to be at someone's office at a certain time, you're there at that time. You don't show up 20 minutes late. If you tell them you're going to do something, you do it, and you get it done right.
So be flexible. Things happen and change consistently. Listen to your recruiters. I'm sure many of us are now starting to be like the older generation of recruiting. The newer recruiters have great ideas that could tackle their AORs, the things that we didn't used to do as recruiters. So be considerate of their ideas and willing to listen to them.
Sorry, you
Going
saw
in the
my
right order.
my turn last
go-
time, McFall. No, I'm
I'm
going,
sorry.
man.
I was trying to be quiet.
So responsibility, reliability, and respectability are the three things that I think make anybody just be a good leader. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I'll finish up with being a good communicator. If you're not already, get outside help to understand. We do have these BTI surveys that show personalities and like how to talk to people and how you receive information, and I think those are key to how you learn to communicate those messages. I can say the same thing to everyone in my flight, and each individual is going to take it a little bit differently depending on how I gave that information. So involving them in that, I usually compare that to a dental appointment. I don't know if you guys have been to one recently, but when you go there, they ask you how you learn. And I check all three boxes: verbal, written, and by they ask, do you learn by visuals? I check all three boxes to see what the dental clinic does. And sure enough, if I got something going on and with my teeth, they give me a written version of it. They talk about it, and then they bring out like a little jaw skull and show me what's going on. And the reason why I say that is some of our folks learn that way, and some of them you can just say it and they're good to go. So communicating and understanding personalities is the biggest thing for me.
And I think this is the last question before we open it up for any follow-up questions or questions from the field here. So had to end it on a positive note. What's the best part of the job?
All right, the best part of the job to me, you're stepping into a role where you have the team that has a positive outlook and just loves getting after the mission. I spent a lot of time analyzing how I could do that and thinking about that, and I truly enjoyed taking that role on. You also get the opportunity, much like as a recruiter, you got to help people develop and grow to join the Air Force. You, as the primary trainer of all your recruiters, have the opportunity to develop and grow your recruiters and help them through their code.
You cut out, sir. Are you done before I start talking over you?
Oh goodness, where did I cut out? Did I get most of it out there?
A lot of it was broken.
Gotcha. I was just saying the opportunity to create a culture and a positive attitude with the flight, and then the opportunity also to help grow and develop the careers of those that you're supervising. Over.
I will ditto what he said, but I'll also add to it. So I put on here, learning from my team. I learn from them all the time, just different ways of doing things. And then when they get a win, it doesn't matter how big or small that win is. I always celebrate it, whether it's a shout out to the whole team, or if it's just a text message or a call. It could be as simple as they finally mastered a step in impact and they finally got it. Or getting that one processor across the floor that they've been working months on. Like, I make sure that I celebrate those small wins.
Yes, and I mean all of that. This job's amazing, but I think it's really the mission that we do in changing people's lives every day. Not just the recruiters that work for you as a flight chief or anything else, but just everything that we do. This job's awesome. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I had small victories, definitely celebrating those as being part of the best part of the job. Empowering others to have the knowledge and resources that you have to do this, right? I'm big on empowerment, and I look at that as a big win when I can go on leave, I can hand the flight over, and I literally everything is taken care of. And the last thing is seeing my teammates and team members voluntarily jump in to help each other. That is a big deal to me, and that's part of that culture piece that that Sergeant Smith touched on. And what I hope is that they carry that type of culture forward. Best part for me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I really spent, I got some notes that I was writing down over here, so really appreciate all that. I would like to, I guess, open up from the field if anybody out there has any questions or follow-up questions for any of our flight chiefs. I'm gonna stop sharing there. You got anything out there?
Hey, Sergeant Harwell.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm
I have
good.
a
How are you?
question. Great, thank you. I have a question for the flight chiefs. In the current climate that we're in, where there are so many challenges across the command, do you all feel like the ideas and the insights and suggestions and concerns you have are getting to the ears of the folks that need to hear them? Do you feel like you have the opportunity to affect change and to, make sure what's really happening on the ground is getting up to those that can affect change and implement some ideas that you and your teams have?
Senior Master Sergeant Bazil, Sergeant Ream, yes, but I have to say that because you're my boss. No, I think ultimately it comes down to whatever changes that we have, and I know at least in 6-2 you've empowered us to do that, along with Chief Cone, Colonel Zinnerman, to pass those things up. 7-2 group's been very receptive of most of the ideas that we have. I don't know how else to answer that question other than yes, we do have the ability to do that. It just is a matter of, does it work for the entire enterprise across the board?
Yeah, and I could touch on that a little bit too, but I would say that the information definitely goes up, and I think that there are some things when we get into geofencing and marketing and things of that nature, that those processes could be a little bit more transparent, and a lot of our folks will, and we put those business challenges, and we send those up, and we try to have some geofencing go on our locations. Knowing what the results of those are, I think would probably close that gap of knowledge to understand we did send this stuff up, and these are the results that we're getting. But even these small, in the 6-9 group, we've had Chief Puff calls them small rocks to get out of the way so we can help move these larger stones. And some of those items of if we could get 5 more minutes and not have to fill out an 1800, or if we don't have to do a building safety survey or something like that, those things are getting looked at. So the small things as well as the big things, I feel like they're getting looked at, and that everybody's voice is being heard. Anybody else want to go?
I can't. Yeah,
I'm not sure
Yeah,
if Sergeant Smith is talking or not.
I can't speak for all the units. I've been in the 330th until I just came up here to the group for quite a while, but I'll say, can you hear me or no? All right. Now I was just saying, I've been in the 330th for a while. So as far as speaking to other units, I can't speak to other units, but when I was in the 330th, the communication was excellent. I felt like leadership did truly value me, because we did get to affect a lot of change in that squadron.
Same for the 360th. Any communication that we're sending up for ID, not to make it better. I feel like it's being received.
You have any other questions, comments from anybody else that's here today? Going once, going twice. All right, well, I just want to take a quick second to thank all of our flight chiefs that took some time out today to be here. So thank you. And I'm gonna hand it back over to Sergeant Keating to close us out.
Yeah, I'm just same thing. Thank you, Sergeant Harwell, for putting this all together. I know you did a lot of the background and the planning processes in it. I think you hosted a very, very good presentation today. So thank you for that. And then also thank all of our flight chiefs today. Sergeant Rain, Sergeant McFall, Sergeant Roberts, Sergeant Smith. Thank you guys for providing your insights. Hopefully somebody can take away a lot from this. Maybe they'll move into flight chief, or maybe they'll learn to better communicate. Just overall great presentation. As a recap, for those of you going back to your squadrons, remind those senior airmen of yours that opportunities we have to work with us in the 5-6. Our next presentation is going to be at the end of February, and we are planning our next speed mentoring session, which could be possibly for March. More details to follow, so keep an eye on our social media and emails to come out on that. But that concludes today's presentation. If you have any comments or suggestions, please email them my way. You guys have a great afternoon. Thanks for attending.
Thanks for
Bye.
having us. Thank you.